Hi everyone, this is Editing Jess. I just wanted to let you know that what you're about to hear is the first episode Kristen and I ever recorded, and it's using old audio files from an interview done years ago, so the audio might be a little wonky. That being said, it's still a great episode, and I hope you enjoy it. Hi everybody, we're Jess and Kristen. Welcome to Situations, the Poop Podcast,
where we talk about all things poop related, from your crappiest stories to your most pressing questions.
So come listen, because we have something for every asshole. I'm on big shits. Taking big shits on big ships.
Who flushes a fork?
That's another reason why I bonded with these guys. We're just always prone to talking about poop all the time.
Okay, Jess, this is our first podcast episode, and you previously interviewed two people that you worked with, right?
Yes.
And can you tell me a little bit about these guys and who they are?
So for all of you who don't know, my day job is I'm a filmmaker, and I go out on research vessels and I interview scientists and I film them as they do the science work they're doing. And something I realized is what it takes to poop at sea, right? So when I'm on these research vessels, I'm on ships, big ships. So you go out to sea for 2 weeks at a time at minimum. And this particular cruise I was on for 45 days. We never came to land. And I got really close with the engineers, Doug and Ted. And these two guys were wonderful and answered all of my questions about what it takes to handle shit, literally, on a research vessel. And what happens when you poop on a boat in the middle of the ocean? Where does it go? What does it do? Do you just dump it into the water? I interviewed them back in 2022, and this is their interview.
Okay, nice. So let's get that started and listen to what they have to say.
So, thank you both for coming. Thank you for being my first guest on my food podcast. Let's start with introductions. Say your name, where you're from, and what your job is.
Doug. Job is the first engineer right now, and I'm from North Carolina.
Ted Kane, I'm a chief engineer on board, and I'm from California.
And how long have you guys been engineers?
18 years.
Same, actually, but I'm rare because I've only worked on the Kila Moana.
You've never worked on any other ship?
Nope.
And is that rare to only work on one ship?
Pretty rare, yeah.
Yeah.
And Doug, how many ships have you worked on?
I don't even know. 12? 14?
Really? And you have another ship, right? That's your kind of your home ship?
My home ship, Cape Decision.
And how long have you been working on Kila Moana?
On this boat? I just got on in the middle of August.
So you're new. You've never worked on this boat before?
No.
So how long have you guys known each other?
Since
September.
I got on at the beginning of September.
40 days ago.
Yeah, thereabouts.
Yeah.
So I have to pause this because, like I said, I got to know these guys really well. You know, you work weird shifts, you work weird hours. And so I'm hanging out with them. You socialize at lunchtime, meal times. I honestly thought the two of them, with the way like their joking dynamic and the way they talk to each other, I thought they've been working together for a decade, 5 years minimum. And to find out that they literally, so Doug was only contracted for this one trip that I was on. He's never been on that ship before. And the way that like hierarchy works, Ted is the chief engineer. So he's in charge of all the engineers and everything that goes wrong. Doug was the first engineer. So it's, you know, they're ranked first, second, third. And the first engineer is like second in command. So the two of them are handling all this shit together. And so I guess there's just some really fast bonding when you spend that much time, or I should say spend time doing such an intense job together.
Yeah, I guess there is some bonding to be had when you're both elbows deep in poop together.
In the middle of the ocean with no escape.
Okay, so what does it mean to be a ship's engineer? What do you guys do?
Oh.
A little bit of everything.
Try to make sense of nothing.
To put it a little better than that, we're essentially running a small town. We have to make electricity, treat sewage, produce water, and burn trash, make sure all the various bits that make science happen still work.
And then can you guys explain it in a little more detail? So if someone like from the middle of the country who's never seen a research vessel before or a ship or wouldn't understand what being at sea is like, can you kind of explain kind of what it's like and why this stuff is important?
Well, you have to keep the ship going. Maintenance, repair, troubleshoot, fix. If not, we're all just stranded out here. So if the ship can't move, it can't get back to port, and we're just stuck here. It's always nice to be able to turn on a light or have air conditioning or
Be able to flush your toilets.
flush your toilet, turn on a shower, eat some food. So, yeah, he said it's every aspect of a town.
So when you were younger and you were like, yeah, I want to be an engineer on a ship, did anyone tell you, or did you have any idea that you were going to be literally knee deep in shit?
I didn't know people worked on ships, to be honest. So I didn't even think of shit on a ship.
When I started out, no idea. I just, like most other people, it's like, oh yeah, nope. You got to get in there and shovel it out.
I grew up traveling on a sailboat a lot with my parents, and I knew it from that. There's a little pump next to the toilet that you pump the shit out. And all you had to do was, if you had to shit, you had to go out on deck and make sure nobody was swimming. And if they were, you could tell them to go swim away somewhere else. And then you pump it overboard.
Let's pause it. So this is such an interesting topic about going into this line of work and not knowing the amount of shit you're going to have to deal with on a daily basis, because I feel like there's a lot of jobs out there that you would never associate with poop. But once you start working it, you actually come face to face with shit on a daily basis. I think it should be specified for people when you're applying for a job, or within the expectations that that's going to be part of your job description.
I don't know if
like,
they should.
When I worked,
what if they lose applicants? What if suddenly there's not enough people in the field because they're just not willing to do it just from reading it?
Yeah, you have a good point. We'll cover this in a future podcast for sure, but I mean, I worked at a restaurant, and I mean, obviously you're involved with food, so clearly there's going to be some sort of bodily function that's involved, but the amount of shit that I came in contact with in a restaurant is terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, how many kids do you meet in college who are like, I'm an engineer. I've got an engineering degree. I'm going down the engineering path. These guys are engineers. They went to engineering school. They got an engineering degree. I don't think any of their classes or any of their time in college ever linked the information of handling shit with engineering. And to Doug's point, people don't think about the fact that you can work on these massive ships. And when I say massive, we're talking, right, they have 10 floors, or what they call decks. They're hundreds of feet long. They're sometimes hundreds of feet across. So you're talking, it's right.
Can you compare the size to like another ship or something similar so that people can kind of have a better idea?
So a good thing to think of are military ships, right? Aircraft carriers and stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong. Those are fucking massive. The stuff I work on is not that massive. This ship we were on was about 1/8 the length of the Titanic. So everyone knows the Titanic. It was a massive, massive boat, or at least it was for its time.
Tiny compared to a cruise ship, technically, now.
Definitely tiny compared to a cruise ship. The Kilomoana is 186 feet long, 88 feet wide, and 25 feet in draft. And draft is how much of the ship is under the water.
Okay.
So from the water line down was 25 feet. And then you have all the decks above that. So it was much taller than that.
Okay. So anyways, that's like, okay. So 1/8 the size of the Titanic. So people can look up the Titanic and compare to a cruise ship, and then they can kind of see how big the ship is.
Yeah. The Kilomoana is the research vessel for the University of Hawaii. So you can go ahead and Google it, and you can see pictures of it. But yeah, the point I was going to say too that Doug mentions is like, no one thinks about these kinds of ships. Everyone thinks about like, yeah, my dad has a sailboat. My family has a sailboat, or like a speedboat, or I chartered a fishing boat to go deep sea fishing, right? Those are small. They might have like one bedroom, one little stall toilet. We had some family friends that had a small like sport boat like that we'd go out with. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest, I never pooped in their toilet. I was too afraid. I didn't know what to do. I was afraid it was like gonna get stuck.
I think that's common. I think that's a common fear for people to take a shit on boats. I mean, I think they scare you on purpose. I don't think, it's like no one wants to deal with a backed up toilet on a boat. So I think they do scare you to convince you to not take a shit on the boat.
So yeah, here is Ted kind of describing how the ship system works.
Yeah. So the system on this ship is we have a vacuum system, which usually scares most people the first time they use it because it sounds like it's going to suck you into the toilet. But we've got probably 20 to 25 toilets throughout the ship. Each one is connected to a vacuum system that draws about 20 to 25 inches of vacuum. And the reason they do that is it makes it a lot easier to overcome the boat being heeled over or changes in angle of the pipe. So if it's not perfect, it'll still get to the sewage tank like it's supposed to. 3 systems that go to a manifold. And we have essentially pumps that suck from the bottom of the sewage tank, go through venturis to create the eductors to create the vacuum. And they just keep the vacuum on the system all the time, and that's what moves the shit to the tank.
At the same time, it macerates, you want to say?
Yeah, but it doesn't really macerate until it's more of a frappe.
Okay, what does macerate mean?
Basically, it sounds like it goes to something very similar to a blender and just makes a nice little chocolate milkshake.
So basically the macerator is the blender portion. Okay.
Yeah, in a tank, and then we either pump it to a MSD, which wasn't marine sanitation device.
Like you said, the MSD is a marine sanitation device, which is, I guess, it's a huge system built into the ship. It's basically like their septic tank.
So essentially, the marine aspect is just the fact that it's on a ship. Like, it's not sanitizing like ocean water, right?
Right. So they do have ships use ocean water in their plumbing. They have an intake that actually sucks in ocean water, and they have a desalination tank and stuff that takes the salt out. So it's used for drinking water and all these things. So I'm sure they're using ocean water to actually plumb these systems. But yeah, most of the time, if you hear someone say marine, it's just because it's happening on the ocean, like marine operations, marine something.
And then we either pump it to a MSD,
which
will
bleaches it, grinds it, and screens it, and then puts it over the side.
Yeah. Or we just pump it straight over the side if we're far enough out.
Or, when we're in port, it goes into the municipal sewage system.
So it does always end up in the water. Once the whole system does what it's supposed to do, it goes over the side into the ocean. And if it doesn't go into the ocean, it's getting piped out, kind of like how you empty an RV into the proper sewage system.
At sea, it does always make its way into the ocean.
Yes.
It doesn't get stored anywhere on the ship.
Not unless we're really mad at somebody.
We wouldn't have enough storage on board.
No. Not with the amount of shit we make.
Cool. Well, then, we'll get right into it. The whole purpose of this podcast is to tell stories about poop and all kinds of shitty situations. And I have heard that you guys have a collection of fun poop stories. So,
in general, it's safe to say that most engineers are only about 4 wrong turns away from talking about sewage in any conversation.
Like we've said in our intro, it's another reason why I bonded with these guys. We're just always prone to talking about poop all the time.
Yeah. So when he says that they're basically 4 wrong turns away from talking about poop, so is it more just because their life is so entrenched in it that it's just such a common topic of conversation?
I think so. Yeah, it's like you said, engineers, they're responsible for literally everything that makes the ship work. But yeah, you're so often dealing with something going wrong with the poop and the sewage system that of course you're going to end up talking about it. It's the most common thing that everyone deals with.
That's so funny.
Personally, and this is why I'm doing this podcast, I find that I end up talking about poop quite a lot, especially during mealtime, which I find most people don't actually enjoy. Can't tell why.
I don't know, that seems where
I tried to explain when I was sailing as a third engineer and you had to clean the shit system every week, and why you don't like to floss. Try to
Oh.
explain that to a dentist, and they
Oh.
look at you. Well, you got to floss every day. Well, when you go and clean shit or a pump or anything that's pumped shit around, you don't want to then just go to your room and floss.
When he's talking about floss, is this because, like, is it just because his hands are constantly in poop all day that he doesn't want to put his hands near his mouth? Or is he saying that they find a lot of floss in poop and now he doesn't want to floss? What does that mean?
I've thought the same thing. I'm pretty sure it's because his hands are always touching poop so frequently that the last thing he wants to do is now stick his hands in his mouth. But I have visualized like just wads of turd with like little strings of floss in them. And I don't think that's it. But you know what? Some of the stuff we're about to hear in these stories, I wouldn't be surprised if people were flushing floss.
It's so bizarre. Okay, we'll continue.
So there's more than one aspect of it.
Would you say that this job has made you a bit of a clean freak, like constantly trying to disinfect in any way you can?
It's impossible.
I think at this point it just kind of desensitizes you to it. It's
Yeah.
like, it's just some poop.
What was your first experience with actually like handling poop or a shitty situation on a boat?
Oh. I was still at Cal Maritime. That's where I went to college. And they have aerobic.
I was just thinking too, Ted just said, it's just, it's just like handling poop. It just is. It makes me think of mothers, right? Like there are people who, when you vomit, there are people who like see someone vomit and they instantly vomit and they're like, I could never be a mom. But then suddenly they have a kid and they're catching vomit in their hands so their toddler doesn't throw up on the nice couch. The scale of which you handle something must so seriously rewire your brain that like, because like there is E. coli in poop. Like it's gross. That's about as grossest thing that can come out of your body.
I mean, it also smells so bad.
Yeah. I wonder they must go nose blind to it.
Ugh.
Right?
Ugh. I mean, there's like people who work in the like EMTs and nurses, and a lot of times like there's patients that shit themselves or they come in covered in shit, or there's a homeless person that's covered in shit and the EMT has to take care of them when they put like menthol beneath their nose so that they don't have to smell it, because like it's just once it's in your nose, you can't, even when the poop is gone, you can't get that smell out of your nose.
Oh God, I didn't even think of that.
The fact that you can do a job that deals with poop so frequently, they become desensitized to the smell, and just the fact that you're dealing with human feces is baffling.
Right? And you know what? Speaking of like jobs with poop, if it's horse manure and like horse shit, I'm not as concerned about that.
It's not mushy. Horse poop's not mushy. I feel like that has a lot to do with it. It's like hard and clumped and it doesn't smell great, but it's also just, it doesn't smell as bad to me.
I mean, it's mostly just grass, right? It's just.
Yeah. But it's like, there's like no mush factor, and I feel like that has a lot to do with it.
Okay. So yeah, Ted is about to explain his first experience with poop.
I was still at Cal Maritime. That's where I went to college. And they have a aerobic sewage treatment system there. That means it uses bacteria that reproduce in oxygenated environments. And big tank that has these plastic kind of, we call them bug colonies or bug condominiums. And all the bacteria grow on there, and you're constantly aerating the poop, water, sludge mix, so the bacteria can eat it and do what you need to. Every so often, those plastic towers need to be changed out. One of my first jobs with sewage at Cal Maritime was I cracked open the door to change it out, and I was the guy that got to shovel out the shit, literally. There was about 7 inches of various bits on the deck of that particular compartment where all the poop went, and I got to shovel it into a bucket, and my other buddy Thomas, he got to dump said 5-gallon buckets into the 55-gallon drum that we're putting it into.
And how old were you?
18? Yeah, let's go with 18.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Kristen, going back to the horse idea, you were doing horseback riding for a long time when you were younger, right?
Yeah.
How long were you riding for?
Oh God, a couple of years.
So, did you have to clean out like the stalls, the horse stalls?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Um, Honestly, what was worse was the pee. Because they essentially, like, the stall's only so big, right? Like, a horse can turn around, but it's like, it can only go so far. So it's, when it pees, it's essentially peeing in the same spot the entire time. So when you're mucking out the stalls, like, there's usually not a puddle, but like the shavings and everything else that's in there, you kind of have to like scrape it away and like get rid of all of it. And then you put like chemicals down, usually. Like, I forget exactly what we used to use to counteract the smell and, just like the enzymes in the pee. And then once you've done all that, you put all fresh shavings down. But yeah, you have to like muck out the poop, but it was relatively easy. It's like you essentially use like a giant, not a pitchfork, but like a rake for scooping. I don't know how to explain it exactly. It's like, or like clamming, if you've ever been clamming, you know? So like it lets all the shavings and everything fall through, but like it doesn't let the poop fall through. So like you do that and then you have to like scrape up the shavings. But the poop, like I said, the poop wasn't bad because it's not like mushy, you know? And it's been in there, so it's not, I don't know. And it doesn't smell great, but like the entire barn smells the same way. So it's not like you step into somewhere. It's not like when you step in shit and all of a sudden you're like, I can smell this. It's so intensely. Like, it's not like that. The smell you just smell at the barn is what you smell when you're mucking out a stall. But the pee smell was worse. That was horrible. But having to deal with the horse shit really wasn't that bad.
Okay. I'm picturing what he's describing as some kind of analog to that, right? Like it's basically the same as mucking out stalls. Whatever these, I'm gonna have to look up what these bug colonies are, and maybe I'll post them on our Instagram, and you can check them out later.
Yeah, but I think it's the mush factor, and you're doing it with your, like, you know what I mean? Like, I had a tool, and there was like an extension of myself, so I didn't have to get close to the poop. It's like it sounds like their hands are in it, and even if you're wearing gloves, it's like, you know, it's like closer to your face, and just like the liquid and the things that they're talking about, like there's just like a mush factor, and I feel like it just is such a messier job that makes it more disgusting.
For reference, there are some things you're going to say that are specific to ship vernacular. So a deck is the floor or just kind of the the space you're on. So deck 1, deck 2, some decks have special names. So just consider it like floor 1, floor 2. And then every time they say head means bathroom on a ship. That's common across all ships. You say the head, you mean the bathroom. They say a bulkhead, that's a wall. Yeah, and then as we go, I'll just continue to keep listing what those words mean, and feel free to stop me if you don't know.
I'm gonna go off on a little bit of a tangent. Really has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it just came to me. When I was little, I thought, okay, so planes, you know, you poop on a plane and then the toilet is like the vacuum toilet that sucks it out. I used to think that it just got flushed into air, and then I was like, how is it that like with the amount of poop and like the amount of people on planes and the amount of planes that are flying, I was like, how is it that there's just not poop getting rained down on people? I'm like, where does this poop go once it hits the atmosphere? Like, does it burn up? Like, what is the deal with this? I was really little, and it took me a while to realize that that's not what happens when you flush the toilet on a plane.
That's incredible. I don't know why I never pictured that. Like, it coming from the mind of a child, that makes so much sense, right? Like,
I think it comes from like movies that you watch, right? And they're always like, you know, the guy gets sucked into the toilet or like something crazy. Like, they're always like making things, not that they ever showed poop or anything getting flushed out of the plane, but I feel like Hollywood just, the way they portray certain things, it just made my brain be like, oh, well, it just gets flushed into the air. Like, it doesn't, like, no, that doesn't. Anyways.
I'm literally picturing, like, could you imagine walking down the street and it like diarrhea just slapped you across the face?
It's so bad. I mean, it probably would be more like raindrops by the time it got to that point, like it would break up so much, but
So
anyway.
you might be surprised to hear this, but there is such a thing called blue ice. And I remember because you just said this and it made me think of this news report I had seen where a house was damaged, some chunk of blue, it was called blue ice, like a big hunk of crystal smashed through their roof. And I guess blue ice, I've just looked it up on Wikipedia. Um, Blue ice is frozen sewage material that has leaked mid-flight from a commercial aircraft lavatory waste system. It's a mixture of human biowaste and liquid
No, it does.
disinfectant
Really
that
does.
freezes
Yes,
at
it's
high altitude.
Oh my God, that's wild. I didn't know that. So I'm not technically wrong.
You're not. It's not supposed to happen. That's
It's
not
slightly
where
more
the flushing
terrifying.
goes, but it's possible.
That's wild. I mean, it's slightly more terrifying to know that a giant frozen poopsicle is going to come at me.
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay.
All right. Okay.
Okay. Let's get back to this. Let's get back to this interview now that we just went off on this crazy tangent.
Excellent. All right. So the next story is from Doug and his first experience.
The first time, I don't know. I mean, we just did routine maintenance on the MSD.
That's what I was
Processes
crawling
poop
into.
that sends it overboard. But the ship that I was on, it was a fairly clean, chlorinated system. So it was never bad. But so it's not the first time I worked on it. The worst time, I say the first worst, would be the strainer just before it plugged up.
Oh.
And when you take the lid off and it's a perfect formed chocolate cupcake with corn sprinkles, you don't eat corn anymore either.
What does he mean? What does he mean when he says chocolate cupcake? What does that even mean?
So I might have to ask one of them for a diagram, but what I think happens is you have all of these pipes that run around the ship from the toilets to this MSD, marine sanitation device. But when the sewage goes into that device, there's a strainer first, right? So think of like a pasta colander, but maybe more narrow. And I think its design is it like breaks up the shit as it goes in. And that's the first step in the process. And I think it just got clogged. I think there was enough shit backed up that it just kept kind of like caking in there, but it's got water pressure, right? It continues to push it through and something's still making it through, but it's getting clogged, right?
Basically, within the tube is just a poop, but then it overflowed over the top and created like a muffin top. So when they took it out, it was literally like shaped like a cupcake.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I think so. And right, because we all know that corn does not process. Every time you eat corn, the next day you poop and you see the little bits of corn, right?
Yeah,
so clearly
yeah.
someone in that recent poop had corn, and there he pulls out his perfectly formed cylindrical corn chocolate cupcake.
Ugh.
What looks like, right? It's just literally a cupcake of turd with little corn bits in it.
That's disgusting. Okay, we can continue. I need a verification with this chocolate cupcake. Okay.
Well, that reminds me of chocolate cupcakes. When I was in high school, did you guys do Mr. NAHS when you were in high school?
I don't remember.
It was like the Miss America, but for the guys. It was like a pageant for all the guys in school that wanted to do it.
No, it's not ringing a bell. It doesn't mean we didn't do it, but my memory, I don't remember doing that.
So basically, it was formed just like a Miss America pageant, and the concept was the guys had to do evening wear, swimwear. They had to do a talent. It was a whole thing. And one of the guys that year had really gotten into mammoths, and in art class, he was always like drawing mammoths,
like woolly mammoths.
Yeah, like a woolly mammoth. And so he entered Mr. NAHS, and he constructed this giant woolly mammoth from like paper mache and chicken wire that him and his buddies were walking across the stage, and everyone loved it because that was kind of his theme of the year. But what takes the cake was they had bought chocolate muffins from Stop and Shop and were throwing them out the butt as they were walking across the stage. So this woolly mammoth was shitting across the stage as they were walking.
That's hilarious and brilliant. It reminds me of Ace Ventura when he's on the rhino. You know, the fan breaks and he's like gets butt naked and then he's still like dying in there, but he can't get out because the door is broken. So he forces himself out the butt of the rhino. I mean, it's more like the rhino was birthing a human man instead of shitting it out, but
Still, yeah. For those of you out there who have not seen Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, oh, and it's called When Nature Calls, which is that's a poop term.
Yeah.
Definitely check it out. That scene might be the funniest scene in movie history. But yeah, so in that high school production, there was a literal chocolate cupcake used for poop.
That's amazing.
But it was a chocolate cupcake with corn sprinkles in the strainer basket. And the perfect shape is the outside of the strainer. Yeah. And yeah, you got to scoop it out, and it's not pleasant.
Did you get a tool to scoop it out, or did you just have to go with your hands?
We always tried to make tools, but usually ended up just with your hand in the glove. And
what kind of glove? Like,
don't get a hole. Don't get a hole. Don't get a hole.
Yeah. Like a little
surgical glove?
No, the 1970s mom wears washing dishes glove.
Okay.
Not the sewage gloves that we put Siobhan in for the XBT.
No.
For reference there, an XBT is an expendable bathymetric something. I forget what the T means, but basically it's this little like gun that like shoots a little sensor off the back of the boat, and it's pitiful. It's just like bink and kind of drops. But they had convinced one of the students that X stood for explosive. And they set her up with all of this gear that like they had the helmet and like a face shield, and they pulled out these gloves that are black rubber, look like you're about to stick your hand up the anus of a cow, like up to the shoulder gloves. And she had like a welding apron on. And everyone, we were all in on it. Everyone convinced her it was gonna like explode when she shot it off the back of the boat. And of course it did. It was like bing. Very funny. But so that you can picture it, when he says, these sewage gloves, they are thick black rubber gloves that just come all the way up to the elbow, or to the shoulder, I mean.
I feel like if I had access to something like that and I had to work on these jobs, I would use them every time.
Right? I would think so too, but according to Doug, they just used like your standard dishes.
Like rubber gloves, yeah.
But like Ted was saying, just pray you don't get a rip, but you don't get a hole in that glove.
I mean, as long as you keep your hand clean, you're good. Anything up here, you can just wash it off.
Twice I've had a strainer plug. The second time was in the shipyard, and it was a different strainer. And it was actually coming out of the engine room head, rolling down the stairs. But we were in the shipyard, so there was welders all over. So I climbed into the top of the tank and took the flange off the top of that strainer. And as I loosened the bolts, it just started spraying out. And I was sitting on my knees and on my heels. And I looked down, and there was a puddle of shit in my pants. In my lap. That was not mine. And the bucket was clean still at that point, and I started puking into the bucket. That was probably my worst.
Let's get this clear. So the stateroom that had an overflowing toilet.
No, this was the people on the bridge were using the flushable wipes. And it lined the strainer so nothing went through it. And the whole pipe had filled up with water. We're just going to call it water today.
So when he says it filled up with water and he just wants to call it water, it's diarrhea for all intents and purposes. It's poop just mixed with water at that point, right?
Sewage water. Yep.
Okay. And what's a stateroom and what's the bridge?
So a stateroom is a bedroom. Usually it's bunk beds. Everyone shares a room. So you'll probably have anywhere from 1 to 4 beds. And on a lot of ships, you'll have a bathroom per stateroom. so that the people who share those 4 bunks, there's a bathroom attached. Sometimes the bathroom is shared between 2 rooms. So like on the Killamoana, I had a room that I shared with a girl. I was in the top bunk, she was in the bottom bunk. We had the bathroom, and then you walked through the bathroom into the next bedroom, into the next stateroom, and that was a 1 bedroom for someone else. So the 3 of us shared that 1 bathroom. We were responsible for, keeping it tidy and clean and whatnot. And the bridge is basically mission control for the ship. It's usually at the top. It's where the captain is. It's where the first mate is, people that drive the boat, navigation, all of that happens in the bridge.
Okay. And then shipyard, that's essentially where they haul boats out of the water, right? And they have them on like big stands so they can do work on them, right?
Yes, exactly. Sometimes they'll still be in the water. They can do work while it's in the water, but typically, yeah, they'll pull them out. If they do that, it's called dry dock. There's usually, it's a huge construction site. There's not always a lot of bathrooms or buildings right around there. So typically the toilets are still active on the ship while they're fixing it and working on it. So people can go into the boat. You can still take a dump and, keep working. And what's cool about this story is I've heard this from a number of people, especially ship engineers. Never flush a wet wipe. Even if it says flushable, they don't break down. I think the quote unquote flushable ones are designed for like septic tanks that will, have chemicals and bacteria that will break it down over time, but it still takes a really long time. But on ships, it's a huge no-no because of how many pipes they have to go through. And for him, right, Doug was saying it was a strainer. So again, think of that like colander. So all of the poop has to go through that strainer into the sanitation device. Well, now you have wet wipes that are just like lining up and just like paper macheing the inside of that strainer and blocking all the holes. So nothing can go through now. So it just always caused problems. So always throw out your wet wipes. Never flush them.
Gross. Okay, continue.
This will be an explicit podcast. You are allowed to swear as much as you want. So if you want to say shit all day, you can. So it was pouring out of the toilet?
No, well, that's why we knew there was a problem. Yeah, it was pouring out of the engine room toilet, which was up a deck, and coming down the stairs.
Okay.
As you would imagine, a slinky rolls down the stairs.
A really, really dirty slinky.
Yeah.
So the other day we were all in the engine room, and you guys were talking about the pipes and knowing which pipe leads to which room. So tell me about being able to track poop to a specific person.
Most of the time, it's not going, oh, they just flushed right there. And, it's like investigative where we find it 30 feet down the toilet or pipe and go, oh, it came from here. It's usually somebody looks like we just shot their dog and they come tell us, I just clogged this toilet.
Somebody did say that the other day. I'll leave their name out of it.
Ooh, who was it?
I'm not going to say that. Flannel. We'll leave it there.
Gotcha.
But they were very shy when they poked their head into the MCC.
And what does MCC stand for?
Main Control Console.
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that. Main Control Center.
And that's the room you guys all hang out in with the...
Yeah.
Okay. Swivel chairs and stuff.
Sure.
But going back to finding out, usually it's literally right there in the elbow at the back of the toilet.
Oh, so it hasn't even made it down towards the engine room.
It's so much better if we can find it there.
I have found forks in the diaphragm valve when you can't build vacuum. And you have to take the toilet off to take the fucking discharge valve off. And there's a fork.
Metal?
Oh, yeah.
Good God.
They were scraping the kimchi that they didn't want to finish into the toilet. And they dropped the fork, and instead of just reaching down and picking up the fork, they thought, well, we'll flush it, and it would be someone else's problem. And it was. Glad you laughed. Don't try that.
Please. Pretty.
I'll
please.
start.
Okay, let's pause it. First of all, why are they scraping kimchi into the toilet and not just into the trash? Like, why are you bringing your... I know it's food that they no longer want, but why is food making it to the bathroom? Why are they doing that instead of putting it in the trash?
So my assumption is, and this is super common, is that people bring their own snacks on board. And I don't know if this, I'm assuming this person probably brought kimchi. You do have a mini fridge in your room. And I guess they just didn't want to walk it all the way down. Because you do the rooms are on one deck, right? They're on one floor. And then there's a long hallway you have to walk down. Then you have to go down some pretty steep stairs. You have to open this heavy door, go down some stairs, open another door. Then you're in the cafeteria, or the mess, as they call it. And then there's like a whole like trash like dump here, this, that, the other. I'm assuming they just were lazy and did not want to walk their plate of kimchi down to the proper trash can. And obviously, kimchi is potent, so you don't want to dump it in your trash can in your room. So obviously,
well, on top of that, who flushes a fork? Like who? How? Also, okay, it's bad enough that you're the type of person that's just gonna flush a fork. Like, it's who does that? First of all, second of all, you're on a ship where you're in the middle of nowhere, and if something happens to the toilets, everybody's SOL. Like, why is it not in your brain that that's a terrible idea in so many ways?
It's a lot of my coworkers and I talking about this. It is shockingly common for very smart people, right? People who are super book smart, scientists, PhDs, right? All of these super scientific people to have zero common sense. Like,
is that what it is?
Went out the brain so they could make room for all the books.
Is it common sense, or is it just like a lack of caring? Like, they just don't care, and it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. Like, it's not my problem. I'm going to flush this and it'll be somebody else's problem.
I mean, that's what I think Doug actually says that was what he assumed. Like, it's just let it be someone else's problem. But that's almost worse. Like, you're a shitty human being if like you're willing to literally destroy the insides of a ship just because you don't want to reach into what sounds like a clean toilet, right? It's just
kimchi. You were gonna put the kimchi in your mouth, so why won't you touch it?
Yeah, just reach back in, touch, grab the fork, pick it back up, rinse it, whatever, throw it in your trash can, who cares? But like a metal fork in a toilet.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. The fact that that's bad. Okay, we can continue.
Start flushing little notes for you guys.
You don't go swim with Jason.
You do that, and we will start teaching you how to fix your own toilet.
This is a great place to pause because this is going to be a 2-part episode. So it's great for everyone listening. You get to tune in for the next episode where Doug and Ted get to share much more of their specific shitty stories, or situations, as we like to call them, and tell us all about how their lives have been turned around by this job. So thank you for listening for today's episode. We've had a great time sharing it with you. And Kristen, do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, don't be shy to write in and let us know if you have any questions that we can cover in the next episode, anything that you may not have understood from this episode, or anything you want us to clarify, and we will do our best to address those in the next episode.
Thank you guys for listening.